so much for coming.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Hello, Fargo Forum. As you know, we're talking about overcoming stress, and like Brian said, with the holidays, it can be a very exciting time, but also can cause a little bit of stress in our life as well. So we're going to be spending the majority of our time focusing on some stress coping strategies, and that'll be a little bit later in the training, but in the beginning, we're going to spend some time talking about how stress really can impact our life. Okay, so I want us all to just kind of check in for a moment, check in how we're feeling. If you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and close your eyes. I just want you to think about how you're currently feeling right now in this moment. Do you have any aches and pains? Are you feeling pretty energized? Maybe you're feeling a little bit stressed because you have some more holiday shopping to do still. Let's just take a brief, another 30 seconds. Okay, you can go ahead and open your eyes back up. What do you feel like are some of the top sources of stress that people are facing today?
Driving in.
What was it?
Driving in. The icy roads.
Yeah, driving, right. Absolutely, it can be stressful. Some other things that maybe came to mind could be, work-life stress, work-life balance perhaps. Maybe it's relationships. Could be, like we talked about, the holidays. Maybe it's financial related. And so these are the 6 dimensions of well-being, and they're all really intertwined. And so when one of the areas are off, it really does impact all the other areas. But when we're thriving in all the areas, we're not just healthy, but we're also more resilient to life's challenges that get thrown at us. Okay? So oftentimes when we think about stress, we kind of think of those negative things, paying our bills, things that keep us up at night. However, I kind of want to reintroduce you to stress and just rethink about it a little bit. Stress in small doses can be a good thing. Sometimes stress is what, it can be good in the fact that it gets us to slam on our brakes when the car in front of us stops suddenly. Or like this little girl in the picture, when we touch something hot, that's us reacting to something that can be harmful and stressful to ourselves, to our lives. And so stressors, they can be a sensory input. So sights, sounds, taste, touch, all of those things alert us that something is happening, something's going on. They can be internal or external. So internal, maybe it's maybe you're sick or have a physical ailment, chronic disease. External, your in-laws coming to visit, or maybe your kids messing up the house. Stressors can be physical, mental, or emotional. And they can be real or even perceived as well. So something that we just think might be stressful, but it's maybe not even a real thing. Okay, so this brings us to the stress cycle. And so this is activated by our day-to-day experiences. First, we experience a potential stressor. So maybe it's Sunday and we're getting ready to go to bed. We know that we have to work tomorrow, and perhaps we have a lot of things going on that day. Our body starts to do this stress cycle process. And so appraisal is next. That's usually a reaction, but it can also be a decision as well, or even a habit. And so we can we can appraise it as no stress, which is easier said than done, of course, or we fight, flight, or freeze. And so fight is if we tend to get angry, agitated, really frustrated when we're stressed out. Flight is if we become depressed, withdrawn, really just spaced out. And then freeze, we're stuck. I think procrastination can kind of fall into this category too. We just have so much to do that we don't even know where to begin. And that's when we're doing the freeze process. Okay? And so we're going to talk a lot about how we have the ability to choose how we respond to the stressful situations that come up. Sometimes they're out of our control, but we can take the appropriate actions to try to appraise them as more, less stressful versus going through that stress cycle process. Okay? And so a hormone that is released when we're stressed, we've all probably experienced that adrenaline rush. Our respiratory rate is increased, our immune system's on alert. All those things are increased except for our digestion. We maybe don't quite feel like eating. We don't have an appetite. when that adrenaline kicks in. Okay, another one is called cortisol, and usually this rises in the morning and then falls again at night. And it's important that that hormone is in balance. When it's not, it also alters various things too. Our immune system, we're going to be more likely to get sick when that's altered. Increases our appetite, so unlike adrenaline where it decreases, this one increases. It stores it as fat. So it's important that this hormone stays in line as well. Something that's kind of interesting is that our body doesn't really know the difference between a day-to-day stress or like a big, huge, scary lion looking at us. It really gets the signal to stress. Regardless of what the situation is, our body goes through that same response. Okay? And so when we don't take the appropriate stress coping strategies, we know that this can lead to ongoing physiological changes, including chronic disease. So cardiovascular disease, weight gain and obesity, blood sugar gets imbalanced, can even lead to diabetes. So it's important that we take these appropriate actions that we're going to be going through. And so this is where I want us to take out our handout. I know there's quite a few that I gave you, but this one says identifying stress at the top. I want us just to take a minute to walk through this document, this handout. So the first is identifying stress. So stress related or not, go ahead and just look at or identify and write down if you have any symptoms that you're experiencing currently, maybe in the last couple weeks. What does that look like for you? Go ahead and take note of those. And then when you're done, you can flip it over and peek on the back. Sources of stress, so this is within the last year, different experiences that you maybe went through that are causing stress in your life. So go ahead and look through or jot down or whatever you would like. And we'll save this last piece on the very bottom for the end. But go ahead and walk through that. We'll take about a minute. All right, while we're wrapping up, any thoughts on either of these pages? Anything that stood out to anybody? Anything that you found interesting? We caught a typo for me, so thank you.
I was surprised by how many symptoms I have.
Yeah, stress related or not, you experiencing some of these, yeah. Once you reflect back on what that looks like, it can be eye-opening, can't it? Anybody else want to share? I always think when I look at the sources of stress, the first one, major life changes, new house, work promotion, marriage, really exciting things, but those can be stressful too, moving into a new house or marriage, just adjusting to that, those changes. It was interesting just to reflect back on your year to see what all you have gone through. Okay, let's move on. So now we'll kind of get into some of the, more stress coping strategies that we all want to hear about. So this first one, abdominal breathing. So it's not a new concept, but it's something that's so easy that we can practice anywhere, at home or at work. It really starts to have an immediate calming effect as soon as we start to practice this. It decreases our heart rate, starts to stabilize that again. Our muscles begin to relax, reduces those levels of those stress hormones that we talked about. And so we're going to just try 1 to 2 cycles of this abdominal breathing. And so if you have like a cold or anything, feel free to just breathe your air out through your mouth. But we're going to inhale through our nose and exhale back out through our nose. So you can place one hand on your stomach and one on your chest if you'd like. Take a slow breath through your nose. Allow your belly to come out, lengthening up through the spine, fully expanding the chest. Then we're going to exhale back out through our nose. So big breath, inhale. Exhale, blow all our air out, as much air as we can. We're going to do a couple more cycles of this. So like I mentioned, a really easy tactic that we can do that can provide some immediate stress relieving techniques. Over time, we begin to breathe, short, choppy, shallow breaths. when we're stressed, and so it is important just to take the 5 seconds to walk through this technique. Okay, and so, we know stress doesn't necessarily it's kind of bad for us. We realize that. Why is it still sometimes so hard to maybe turn our mind off when we're trying to go to sleep at night? Why is it still sometimes so hard? We can't smile, relax, keep calm, carry on. Well, prolonged stress, so over time it can lead to changes in our brain structure. So it can decrease our problem-solving skills, our adaptation to challenge, impulse control, emotional processing, and regulation. So this can be important when we're trying to make some healthy changes or healthy habits in our life. When all of those things are decreased, it can be kind of tough to start a new habit. Okay, so how do we break this cycle? Well, what we really want to do is reinforce the positive, and that's what we're going to be doing, is really focusing on the things that we can do that can be positive in our life. The more our brain sees negative, it looks for the negative, but the more it sees positive, it looks for the positive as well, and that's a really great thing to take note of. There was a book titled How Full is Your Bucket, and it talks about how we need to hear 5 positive things to counteract 1 negative thing. I think that's just so interesting. Okay? And so neuroplasticity, it's our brain's ability to build new networks. This is something that we can do to build that positive in our life. Healthy habits and coping strategies can really override that stress, and then we can reframe that appraisal process that we talked about in the beginning. And so neuroplasticity, it's not a new concept either. It's when maybe we're driving somewhere and we need directions the first time, but then the second time we remember how to get there without needing directions. That's a neuroplastic event. So we're going to go over some stress coping strategies. We know that they have many benefits. Okay, so this first one I wanted to touch on is mindfulness. This just really helps us to be present. So a lot of times we can be in autopilot. We get to work and maybe we think, did we even remember to turn off the iron? And then we think about that and we're just like, how did we even get to work? We got here and we don't even remember the way we got here. And so autopilot, also called the default network, can be something that a lot of us get in the habit of being in. There was a study done on autopilot to observe how we operate on autopilot. And they actually placed a sign that these people walk the same path every day, and they placed a big, huge sign. And those that were on their phone obviously did go around it. However, when they were asked if they remember going around this big sign, they didn't remember at all. They're like, what sign? So I just think that's kind of interesting. What else do we miss throughout our day when we are on autopilot? And so being mindful allows us to be present, lets us be in control so our mind isn't controlling us. And so there was a stress coping handout I passed out, and on there we'll talk about some mindfulness techniques. One is a body scan, and that one can be really beneficial. Another one is to take a look at our self-care and what we're putting into our body and how we're refueling our body. Are we getting the proper vitamins and nutrients that we need in order to be our best version of ourselves? Caffeine, sugar, poor nutrition can activate the stress response, so it's important that we watch our intake with that, as well as movement. We all know how beneficial that can be as well. Moving our bodies throughout the day really increases our endorphins, and that's that feel-good chemical, so we want to make sure we move. Okay. Another piece we can take a look at is our environment. Kind of starting to create that sanctuary, decluttering, getting organized. Maybe it's organized in your office. Maybe it's a drawer in your kitchen that you can't ever find anything in. Maybe it's your closet. That can be something that can cause a lot of stress when you can't find something. Taking a look at our surroundings, so plants, pictures of things that make us happy, those can all be helpful tactics as well. Light, inspirational quotes. And then people or social connectivity. And so we'll dive into that a little bit further. Social connectivity is really feeling like you can count on others. When we isolate ourselves, that raises that cortisol that we talked about in the beginning. And so it's important to be around people that make us feel happy. Taking a class, going to the gym, joining something that you're interested in makes you happy. Reaching out, volunteering, expressing gratitude. So internally or externally. Maybe internally writing down 5 things that you're thankful for at the end of the day. Externally, just telling a coworker or a friend or family member what you appreciate them for, what you appreciate about them. Okay, and so we're going to walk through some of the senses, all 5 of the senses, and talk about how they can be beneficial and impactful as well. So starting with sound, this can be something that can be really relaxing and energizing. Listening to music, perhaps, if you pick the right music, can be very calming, but can also energize you if you're working out and you pick the right song, gets you motivated, and that can be positive. A water fountain, white noise, wind chimes, those can all be different sounds that provide a peaceful, calming effect to us. Okay, the next one is touch. So comfortable, movable clothing so that we can move our bodies throughout the day. Like we talked about, movement is very important. Stress balls can be helpful to relieve some stress, squeezing it or placing it on our back and rolling it around to relieve some tension. When we're stressed, we carry a lot of that tension in our upper shoulders. So like it mentions, a massage can be helpful as well. And that can just be something that we do on our own. We just tap up the outside of our shoulders, down the inside of our shoulders. We can tap on our legs, rub our upper backs and our lower backs and our head, and that can be very helpful. Hot or cold pack, petting a dog or cat, and then also a weighted blanket. Has anybody heard of those or have one of those? Yeah, they can be helpful, can't they? Yeah, really, really inexpensive. Just purchase on Amazon or Bed Bath & Body, or Bed Bath & Beyond, I suppose you could get it at. Okay. Let's move on to smell. So lighting a scented candle, one of your favorite scents, smelling roses or another type of flower, just getting out and being in the fresh air, breathing that in, and then aromatherapy as well. And so let's talk a little bit more about that. That could be something you use with a diffuser or even just a little inhaler, which is more appropriate for an office setting. You can add 1 or 2 drops to your favorite lotion or to a bath. Some of the scents that are supposed to provide calming effects are lavender, chamomile, or mint. And those can be very, very beneficial. Okay, let's move on to taste. So snacking on fruits or vegetables, and I see Brian got you guys. Very good idea. And water, excellent. Yes, those are very good ideas. Adding, lemon, mint, cucumber to your water as well. Maybe snacking on a little piece of dark chocolate in moderation. Teas, peppermint, chamomile, lemon, those all can help when we're stressed out as well. Okay, and so let's move on to sight, which is our last one. Pictures, like we talked about, of our family or a pet or a loved one or places that you've gone, posting those up in your office can be helpful. Getting out in nature and just really enjoying color. There's various colors that can be beneficial, perhaps. Purple is purpose and relaxation. Green, refreshing and creative. Yellow means joy and optimism, and so that can be something that we experiment with a little bit as well. Okay, we just have a few more techniques. The next one is visualization. And so this can help reduce fear, anxiety, improves our motivation, coordination, concentration. I always think that this is so interesting. When you visualize lifting your right hand, it stimulates your brain as if you actually did lift it, which is so crazy. And if you're not so sure how that works, take a look at these lemons. And can you look or think about them without your mouth watering? A thought usually stimulates a reaction. So we can do that too, visualizing our best self, doing the things we want to be doing, setting goals and visualizing ourselves doing those. That can be something that we need to practice to see those benefits. Practice in the morning or at night. Find a time in your day when that might work best. And so this brings us then to the very bottom of our handout, where it has you identify a stressor. So for example, shoulder injury flare-up. What symptoms are you experiencing because of that stress? And then you can identify maybe some stress coping techniques that we walked through, or your handout has just a ton more as well, and identify what you might try in order to relieve that stress a little bit. And so this is for you guys to utilize. There's also another handout that provides, it's a questionnaire, and so you can do that on your own if you're interested. I just wanted to let you know that was available as well. But does anybody have any questions on anything we went over? Comments or thoughts? Yeah.
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
Something that causes my own stress.
Okay.
Vegetables, like carrots, are the loudest things to snack on. So I step away from the cube to do something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
When I'm crunching on it, I feel like I'm annoying my neighbors.
Ah.
I want to be the quiet guy.
Okay. Stepping away. That can be good just to get up and move around a little bit too. So win-win, I guess. That's great. Thanks.
When people come to you, what do you hear the most as far as stress-related issues? Work-life balance, or what types of topics?
I think just all of the above, like we talked about in the beginning. Work stress can be a big one, or just at home with kids, and meals can be stressful too. Just, you want to eat healthy, but what do we eat, and meal planning in general. Yeah, it's stressful for you. Me too, I feel like. Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
going to mention too about
Okay.
therapy.
Sure,
There's
yep.
some good options in here too, but
Okay.
they also make now necklaces that you can
Ooh,
actually pour.
yeah.
I have one.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I have one on right now.
Yes,
You put it
so
on,
cool.
You put a couple of drops on a piece of felt. And it's so
Smell it all
close
day
to-
long.
Yeah, all
That's
day.
a really good idea.
It's great.
Yep, I got one on right now.
That's so
Right now
cool.
I've got lavender
Oh,
and
nice.
cedar.
Okay,
Those are
yes.
good for me.
Good.
I
Yeah.
usually keep peppermint in mine because it's energizing.
Thanks
It
for
keeps you
sharing.
awake. Yeah. Although my family hates it, so then I
Yes. Good for the work environment when it's not, nobody else can really smell it but you. So
You're right, yep.
that's perfect. Yes. Good.
So,
Okay.
before I came down here, I thought, well, I don't think I'm necessarily stressed, but I'm anxious.
Okay.
So what's the difference between stress and anxiety?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that I don't know how to answer that well. They're probably pretty similar, but anxious. I mean, is there things? Were you able to identify things that cause kind of some of that anxiety? I mean, they can really go hand in hand. In my opinion, you're anxious about something. Maybe it's something that's causing stress too in your life. So I think that the stress coping strategies can be helpful for whatever it is, anxiety or stress or anything. So hopefully some of those will help. Does that help answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, I always think, well, is there a real difference, how much of it is stress, or how much are you living in your own head and anxious about things that aren't really real? in
Sure.
perception?
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that a little bit in the beginning. It can be a perception, it can be something that's not real. A stress can be. So, yeah, that's interesting.
I definitely find that too for me, more stress that I have in life. So I think there's
Yeah.
similarities there.
Right. I think so too. Kind of go hand in hand. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much, you guys.